Hello, how's it going, everybody? It's C-Rad from C-RadTV, and we are here with the 2019 Stanley Cup Playoffs. So, this one, it's simple. I'll show you the bracket. I'll give you my predictions for the playoffs. But yeah, before we get into the bracket, let's just go ahead and let's go through all the teams, and let's see how everybody stacks up this year. So, starting off, we're going to go to the Eastern Conference. We got a lot of talented teams in this. So, starting off, we have Tampa Bay, who was our President's Trophy winners with 62 wins. They officially tied the 96 Red Wings for most wins in a single season. This Tampa Bay team is very talented, with the likes of Ryan Callahan, Tyler Johnson, Alex Killorn, Nikita Kucherov, JT Miller, Andre Palat, Braden Point, Steve Stamkos, Dan Girardi, Victor Hedman, Ryan McDonough, Anton Stroman, and of course that goaltender, the Vezina goaltender, Andrei Vasilevsky. Like this team, 62 wins. But keep in mind, the 96 Red Wings, they did not make the finals that year. And we all know before, best regular season ever don't mean a thing if you don't win that ring. Just ask the 73-9 Warriors and the 2007 Patriots. They will attest to that. This year, Tampa Bay, you gotta go all the way to seal it with this core. There should be no way you underachieve with this. It is truly Stanley Cup or bust. But let's move on. Next team we have is the Boston Bruins. Boston, once again, another good Boston team. Really, a lot of the core, it's same as before. Names like David Bax, Patrice Bergeron, Jake DeBrusk, David Krejci, Brad Marchand, who hasn't really licked anybody yet. I say yet. That may change in the playoffs. We also got let me get my word in here. The outstanding star that's emerging, David Pastrnak. And on defense, you got the same names like Zdeno Chara, Torrey Krug, and Charlie McAvoy. And at goaltender, of course, we have Tuukka Rask. So let's go on. Next up, Toronto. Toronto is once again back in the playoffs again. This year, Toronto, you need to do something in the playoffs. This team is a lot more talented than last year's, with names like Nazem Kadri, Patrick Marleau, Mitch Marner, Austin Matthews, Billy Nylander, Nick Patin. Of course, during free agency last year, they acquired the services of John Tavares. Defense is a little better than last year, but it's still subject. Jake Gardiner, Jake Musson, and Morgan Riley. And of course, they have goaltender Freddie Anderson, who was one of the only reasons why the series between Toronto and Boston last year went to 7 games. But Toronto, you have to do some in the playoffs without a doubt, no question. So let's continue on. Next up, we have the Washington Capitals, the defending Stanley Cup champions. See, now you're wondering, after the Capitals ended their legacy of failure last year, what is the next logical step, you may ask? It's simple. Once you end a legacy of failure, you go and try and win another championship and become a dynasty. And that's what the Capitals look to do. The core, about the same as last year. Names like Nicholas Backstrom, Lars Eller, Carl Hagelin, Evgeny Kuznetsov, TJ Oshie, Alex Ovechkin, the main front leader of the squad, Tom Wilson, John Carlson, Nick Jensen, who they acquired from the Wings at the deadline, Brooks Orpik, and of course, the Vezina goaltender, Braden Holtby. This Capitals team is really good. They have really good odds at repeating. But let us move on. Next up, New York Islanders. The Islanders are surprising that they made it in. Like, this team was left for dead when John Tavares left them at the final hour to go to Toronto. But part of this is all on Barry Trotz, who, because of the system and the players they're bought in, this team has some good talent in here. Names like Josh Bailey, Matt Barzal, Colin Clutterbuck, Michael Del Cole, Jordan Eberle, Valtteri Filppula, Andrew Ladd, who will be out for most of this year, out for most of the playoffs, hopefully. Matt Martin, Brock Nelson, Johnny Boychuk. When I say hopefully, I mean he's more than likely going to be out for most of the playoffs if they go deep. Johnny Boychuk, Tom Hickey, Nick Leddy, Dennis Seidenberg, Ryan Pulock, and they got the re-emerging goaltender in Robin Lehrer. You know, goaltending is subject, but if this team can really completely buy in and really roll the system in, they could make some noise in the playoffs and go deep. And of course, next up we have the fucking Penguins, Pittsburgh. And of course, you know most of this Pittsburgh team. They have the star, Sidney Crosby, Matt Cullen, Jake Gunsell, Patrick Hornquist, the hot dog man himself, Phil Kessel, Evgeny Malkin, and Brandon Rust. Their defense is about a more of a dumpster fire than it was last year. Doesn't help when you have a defense with names like Eric Branson and Jack Johnson. But they have Chris Letang and Ole Mata, but that's not going to be enough. But they have a good goaltender in Matt Murray. So the Penguins, they won the Cup a couple years ago with a crappy defense. They failed to do anything with a shittier defense. Now let's see if the Penguins can try and do it again with an even shittier defense. Let's go on. Next up, for this next team, we need a special guest. We need Hurricane Man.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. The Carolina Hurricanes don't fucking suck for once this year, brother. 'Cause for the first time in 10 years, the Carolina Hurricanes are finally a playoff team. The Brass Bazonga will rage wild in Carolina when Hurricane Mania is running here. You like players? We got all kinds of players, young and old. Names like Nino Niederreiter, Jordan Staal, Andrei Sinechikov, Teemu Teravainen, Justin Williams, Justin Volk, Dougie Hamilton, Trevor Van Riemsdyk, and Petey Mrazek at goaltender. We even finally got steady ownership that guarantees the Hurricanes are going to stay in Charlotte for the time being. We even got post-game winning celebrations, and who fucking cares if Brian Burke calls it pee-wee garbage? Fuck Burke anyway. His GM skills in Toronto and Calgary were pee-wee garbage in each city. So please, come to our games, come! We gotta have better attendance than the Ottawa Senators did in their playoff run a few years ago. Please, come to our games! We have our tickets at record low prices on StubHub and SeatGeek. What more do you fucking ask for? Please, come to our games. Come on, come on. So what you gonna do when Hurricane Mania runs wild on you, brother?
Beyond, of course, and the final team we have in the playoffs, the Columbus Shit Jackets. Honestly, I stopped believing in Columbus after last year. The question is, how is Columbus going to dick punch their fan base this year? This team, though, some same names before, names like Josh Anderson, Cam Atkinson, Brandon Dubinsky, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Matt Duchene, who they acquired at the deadline, Ryan Dzingel, Nick Foligno, Boone Jenner, Artemi Panarin, who might be gone at the end of the year, and same deal with Sergei Bobrovsky, who might also be gone. Honestly, they should have tried to trade Panarin and Bobrovsky at the deadline and get something back in return, because odds are they're going to walk away and Columbus will get nothing. So this is probably Columbus' last chance to do something in the playoffs, because next year they may be completely screwed. So can Columbus do something, or will they continue being the least successful team in the NHL? You already got your trophy for it last year, so expect no mercy this year. So next up, let's take a look at the Western Conference. So we got some good teams in the West this year. First off, the Calgary Flames. Calgary finally has a really good team for the first time in how many years? Like, goddamn. This is easily the best Calgary team I've seen since 2004 when they made the finals. Of course, this Calgary team, a lot of youth on it, a lot of young top names, so let's take a look at it. Names like Mikhail Backlund, Sam Bennett, Johnny Gaudreau, Eric Lindholm, Sean Monahan, James Neal, Matthew Tkachuk, TJ Brody, Mark Giordano, Nick Hanifin, and of course the re-emerging Mike Smith at goaltender. So this Calgary team, it's interesting. They've been really hot in the playoffs, but can they keep it up in the playoffs? They got something here. Maybe a deep playoff run will really help the development for these players, but let's continue on. Next up, San Jose Sharks. Sharks are once again a Stanley Cup contender. Can they actually do something with it? We'll find out. Of course, this Sharks team, a lot of the names are same as normal. Names like Logan Couture, Thomas Hertl, Evander Kane. They also acquired the services of Gustav Nyquist from the Red Wings at the deadline. Also got Joe Pavelski, Jumbo Joe Thornton. You also got Brett Burns and Erik Karlsson and Marc-Edouard Vlasic on defense. And you got the goaltender Martin Jones. I think the Sharks team, they have to go deep in the playoffs with this core. They have to do something this year. But continuing on, next up, we have everyone's new favorite team, the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas has once again made the playoffs, a second year in a row, 2 years of their existence, 2 playoff trips. This Vegas team is nowhere close to the team it was last year. This is a dark horse team for the Cup this year. Like, this team has been very inconsistent all year, but most of the core names are the same as before. Names like William Karlsson, Cody Eakin, Jonathan Marchessault. You also got Max Pacioretty, Paul Stastny, Mark Stone, Brain McNabb, Colin Miller, Nate Schmidt, Sean Theodore. And, of course, you got the star goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury, who was solid all playoffs last year until the finals when he fell to shit. So can Vegas shock the world again? Or will this be the year that their Cinderella run strikes midnight? We'll have to see. Next up in the playoffs, we have the Nashville Predators. Smashville, one of the top teams in the West, favorite to win the Cup this year. Look at Nashville, a lot of their top names are still the same. Names like Brian Boyle, Nick Bonino, Philippe Forsberg, Mikael Granlund, Ryan Johansson, acquiring Wade Simmons at the deadline. Also got Kyle Turris, and on defense, you got names like Ryan Ellis, Dan Hamhuis, and PK Subban. And of course, we all know Pekka Rinne's goaltending is still at par. The question is, can Nashville go deep and finally get the Catfish the Cup? Or will they fall apart and will Pekka Rinne just be still too good right now? Will the memes continue or will they end? We'll have to wait and see. But continuing on, next up, we have the Winnipeg Jets. First time Winnipeg's made back-to-back playoff trips in a while. But Winnipeg, another solid team. Easily one of the favorites to win the Cup this year. Of course, on the Jets, you got names like Nikolai Ehlers, Patrick Laine, Brian Little, Mark Scheifele, and Blake Wheeler. Defense is led by the likes of Dustin Byfuglien, Tyler Myers, and Jacob Trouba. With goaltending from Connor Hellebuck, who's emerged as a superstar. So Winnipeg, they have to go deep this year, without a doubt. Easily should make second or third round, without a doubt. No problem. Next up, St. Louis Blues. The NHL's premier legacy of failure. In the playoffs once again. But yeah, so St. Louis wasn't even expected to do anything this year, and they make it back. Of course, for the Blues, a lot of names, same as before. Names like Tyler Bozak, Robbie Fabry, who's healthy once again. Ryan O'Reilly, Dustin Perron, Braden Shen, Jordan Schwartz, Alex Steen. Of course, the leader of this offense, Vladdy Tarasenko. You also got on defense, Jay Bouwmeester, Michael Del Zotto, Carl Gunnarsson, and Alex Pietrangelo. And Jake Gallen is really emerging once again as a brick wall by taking lessons from the dark arts. Will the Blues finally end that legacy of failure, or will it be another painful notch for the Blues? All that and much more will be answered in this year's playoffs. Next up, the Dallas Stars. Dallas has not really been that solid all year, always hanging around the wild card. Just snuck in. Of course, on this team, you got the offensive stars, of course, names like Jamie Benn, Alex Radulov, Brett Ritchie, Tyler Seguin, Jason Spezza, and Matt Zuccarello. The defense has been a complete turnstile, but Ben Bishop has been able to bail those fuckers out with some solid goaltending. I'm not expecting much out of Dallas. Dallas has no expectations in this playoffs. They're just there. And then finally, the final team we have in the Colorado Avalanche sneak in the playoffs once again. Because a lot of the teams in the Western Conference playoff race, like Arizona and Chicago and Vancouver and whatnot, and Edmonton, they all managed to fall apart late in the year, and Colorado just happened to be the last man standing. So yeah, Colorado once again sneaks in. They also got the likes of Gabriel Landeskog, Nathan McKinnon, Carl Soderberg, Tyson Barrie, and of course Simeon Faramoth at goaltender. Well, last year they almost pulled off the upset against the Nashville Predators. But can they maybe make some noise again this year? That's going to be tough to see. But yeah, those are our 16 participants. The question is, Who will go on and win Lord Stanley's Cup this year? Let's find out. So here is the Eastern Conference playoff bracket. So we have in round 1, Tampa Bay versus Columbus, Boston versus Toronto, Washington versus Carolina, and the Islanders versus Pittsburgh. In the West, we have Calgary versus Colorado, San Jose versus Vegas, Nashville versus Dallas, and then Winnipeg versus St. Louis. So yeah, these are our 16 teams in the bracket. The question is, who will move on, and who will have a shot at the round in the Cup? So here's my bracket for round 2. So round 2, I have Tampa Bay versus Boston, and I have Washington versus Pittsburgh in the East. In the West, I got Calgary versus San Jose, and then I got Nashville versus Winnipeg. I'm not buying Columbus one bit. I see Tampa Bay sweeping Columbus in the first round. Boston, Toronto. It's going to be a tough series. I just think Boston has Toronto's number at this point. So I'm going to say Boston takes the Leafs in 6 games. I honestly think Carolina's a year ahead of schedule. I'm not expecting much out of them. I'm going to say Capitals beat the Hurricanes in 5 games. Islanders, Pittsburgh. This is a tough series. I was back and forth on this one. But, the Penguins have been hot as of late. I just think the Penguins are just a better overall team than the Islanders. So I'm going to say Penguins win that one in 7 games. It's a tough one to call. Western Conference, I'm not buying anything out of Colorado. They were just the last team standing. I'm not expecting much out of them. I'm going to say Calgary beats the Avalanche in 5 games. And then I have San Jose beating Vegas in 6 games. Just Vegas has been so inconsistent this year. I'm not sure if they can turn around the playoffs. Maybe it'll shock the world. But I don't know. I'm not buying it. Nashville, I think they beat Dallas without doubt. I think Dallas may give them a challenge. So I'm going to take the Predators over the Stars in 6 games. And I'm not buying anything out of St. Louis. I think St. Louis is going to fall apart again. Because we all know there's something St. Louis knows like the back of their hand. First round playoff eliminations. So I'm going to take the Jets to beat the Blues in 6 games. So yeah, there's round 2 for you. Now the question is, who will advance to the East and the Western Conference Finals? So here are the East and my West Conference Finals. So in the East, I have it being Tampa Bay versus Washington. In the West, I have it being Calgary versus Winnipeg. I think Tampa Bay and Boston will be a better series than last year. I just think Tampa Bay has more firepower than Boston. So I'm going to take the Lightning over the Bruins in 6 games. Washington versus Pittsburgh. Crosby versus Ovechkin again. I just think Washington's got a better overall team because Pittsburgh's defense is a complete tire fire. So I'm going to go and I'm going to take the Capitals to beat the Penguins in 6-7 games and advance to the East Finals. The West, the Calgary-San Jose is going to be a good series. I just think Calgary's got a lot more young firepower in the tank over the Sharks. So I'm going to take Calgary to beat the Sharks in 6 games. Nashville versus Winnipeg. I think it's going to be a competitive series again. I just think, it's going to be about the 2 big crowds. But in the end, I think Winnipeg takes it in 6 games this year. And I have Winnipeg going to the West. I just think Pekka Rinne's just going to be too good right now. But yeah, give me the Jets in 6 in that one. So there we go. The final 4 right there. The question is, who do I have advancing to the Stanley Cup Finals? So probably, since my luck and these are sucktacular, pretty much it's going to be more than likely the 2 teams I'll end up jinxing. So here is my Stanley Cup Final for 2019. I'm going to say it will be the Tampa Bay Lightning versus the Winnipeg Jets. I think Tampa Bay's going to get Washington this year. I think Tampa Bay's going to have the power to get by the Capitals. I'm going to take the Lightning to beat the Capitals in 7 games this time. I think Tampa gets payback from last year. I think Calgary versus Winnipeg is going to be a very competitive series. Back and forth, but in the end, I think Winnipeg takes the Flames in 7 games. So I'm going to take Winnipeg in that one. I just think Winnipeg's going to find a way to outmaneuver Mike Smith. I think Mike Smith's going to fall off at the wrong time. So yeah, there's my finals. Tampa Bay Lightning, Winnipeg Jets. Plus, with Winnipeg, I think we've seen the last 3 years, the team that represented the West in the finals was a team making their first Stanley Cup Finals trip. And I think that trend continues, and I see Winnipeg making their first ever trip to the finals. So, Lightning, Jets, Stanley Cup Finals. Who do I think will win the Stanley Cup this year? So, in the finals, this would be a competitive series, and it could go either way, but, we've seen before, best regular season ever, don't mean a thing if you don't win that ring. And keep in mind, in the East, out of all the President's Trophy winners in the East, only once has the Eastern Conference President Trophies winner went on to win the Cup, and that was the 94 Rangers. And I don't think Tampa Bay does it this year. So, with everything all considered, I think Tampa Bay falls off at the wrong time. And I'm going to say the Winnipeg Jets are going to win the 2019 Stanley Cup. I have the Jets beating the Lightning in 6 games. And Winnipeg will get to celebrate in the whiteout. So yeah, give me Winnipeg winning the Cup this year. So I say once again, we're going to crown a first-time Stanley Cup champion. But yeah, those are my playoff predictions for the 2019 Stanley Cup playoffs. Let me know what your predictions are. Do you agree with some of mine? Do you disagree? Feel free to comment down. But yeah, that's all I gotta say. Hope everyone's a great day. Peace out, and now watch me get half of these wrong after round 1, because that's just my luck with these.